You said you had a Def Leppard story.
Yeah, this is something bad that happened, although I don't feel it was really exactly my fault.
Real soon here, we're going to be getting the necks put on these guitars and getting those pickups put in place and the bridges and all. But today yet, we're going to continue that interview that I started last week with Dave Rusan. Last week, we got to be in the front part of his shop where he meets and greets people. But this week, you're going to get, I think, the most detailed how to build a cloud guitar Dave Rusan style that's out there. I don't think there's an interview that goes into as much detail as this one does. If I'm wrong, you can make note below for me to find those interviews. But he takes us into the far recesses of his workshop, and he shows us some of his tools, some of his different templates, and some of the little tricks that he uses to build those cloud guitars. If you'd like to follow the process of turning a block of wood like this into a guitar like this, then you've come to the right place. And if you would like to see me give this guitar away, click subscribe, hit the bell. Sanded those edges up, routed. I want to bring you on some of this trip because I'm going to go do an interview with somebody that I've been looking forward to doing an interview with a long time. Dave Rusan, who is the original guitar builder for Prince, building the Prince Cloud guitar. I'm kind of excited about it. I am here in Bloomington, Minnesota, in this little neighborhood.
Oh, good morning, guys. Come on in.
Hey, Dave.
Come in and see my shop.
Thank you so much for having us here.
That's all right. I'm happy to have you. You know, and making and just bringing this in, you know, and creating. I guess I did it the other way around, or I would have sanded off the fingerboard. But somehow I did that. I had, the amount of tools I had back then was just terrible.
Yeah.
The average home workshop guy would think he was deprived, you know. But
yeah.
I don't. I look at some of it and I go, how the heck did I do some of that? I had a Dremel tool, I had the drum sanders, and just some basic wood stuff, you know. There wasn't a lot.
Well, I'm pretty limited with what I have as well, but yeah, I keep that flat and then I taper on that side, and I've just been belt sanding is how I've been doing it. And like, this probably looks pretty rudimentary and primitive, but that's what I've got to work with. So
I have some access to other bigger tools through a friend that makes acoustic guitars too.
Okay.
You know, so that I don't have here. But
well, it's beautiful. I already just beautiful
they
guitar.
Come out nice, you know. They one thing that I started to do is when I think it's done, I start to actually run my hands over it a lot. That I can feel things that I can't see at this point, but I'll be able to see when it's shiny and finished. Yeah, what I do now is I pretend I'm almost have my own little factory. I just do the same thing on each one. You know, like, maybe I get all the backs or all the tops together. And it just keeps getting easier, you know, because you do the same thing over and over. You kind of remind yourself how it goes, and it goes quicker, you know.
Yeah. Love it.
This is one of my second favorite tool of all. I'll put it up so you can see it. Like a pro version of a
pro Dremel.
It's much higher in horsepower, and the motor is put into a big cast iron base, so the torque of the motor can't make it flop around, and it comes with a foot pedal. Okay, you familiar with those? That's the world's most expensive sander.
The sander.
$500.
Wow.
It's made in Sweden. If we took those two away,
really slow you down,
I think I might just give up. There's a new set of diamond fret nut files coming out by a company called Music Nomad. Do you know about them?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm getting a whole set, you know, and they're just coming out in about a week. I just, you gotta have all the right stuff. It isn't just being good at what you do. I think, you know, you gotta have the right tools. So, here's something I had a machine shop made for me. You can get this thing on Amazon, but it doesn't, it fits a drill, it doesn't fit this thing. We got a little problem here, there we go. But look how slow you can go, or you can do that. Yeah.
Variable speed,
And
really nice.
I had the machine shop trued it up so there's absolutely no vibration. You know.
Wow.
So I use that.
Very
It kind of
nice.
weighs a lot.
Yep.
And you know, and it's got all kinds of dental tools. You can do all kinds of different things. They're about $400 with the accessories. I got 2 of them.
Okay.
I have another one that hangs inside. And that and the Mirka sander. This is incredible. It's so powerful. I use this. Once I've roughed out the sides, I use this to get the radiuses. And it's like a
very
Ferrari,
nice.
you know. It's
Yeah,
as
so
smooth as an
smooth.
air sander, but it's electric. It runs off a DC motor that's in that converter box there for the power. You can control the speed, you know, with this. You can program it to do different things.
Wow.
So, you know, you can go to Menards and get a palm sander for maybe 20, and this, even used, these are hundreds of bucks, but I use it so much, you know, that I've become so dependent on it. I appreciate it so much. So you gotta have, I get all the good stuff, you know. I got about 6 different hand pieces that go on here. Some have little tiny dental bits, and, you know. So I do enjoy all that kind of stuff, you know.
When you're doing the scroll work on the horn, that you do primarily by hand carving, or do you use the Dremel?
Rough it out with some machine stuff, but then I get out the mini chisels. And my chisels are in disarray because I'm just getting a whole new set. They're coming from Amazon, but a lot of them are not real expensive ones, but they've been really useful. Some of these curved ones I use in here.
Okay.
This one has just been started. And then to run around the swirly thing, I have sanding sticks. I don't know if you've ever seen those kind of things. See, normally they're all sitting right here.
Oh, yeah, from Rockler?
Yeah, I get them both from different places. I also have made sticks that I use to sand.
Yep.
I have to give everything. I have to give everything a name. You know, I can't help it. And then they get into here. You know, when I'm doing getting some of the fine work in here, I'll use these different grits. Yeah. And I'm always checking them. Here's one of those radius things. This is, I go for about a 6-inch radius on the. It's not exact, but I keep it pretty close. I just like it to.
Slightly rounded.
Yeah, I like things to behave at a pretty. When it gets in here, it changes some, you know. And but I'm able to get them all to come out very, very similar. The neck, we got some rough work in there, and this I have to do. I spend a lot of time on this transition up there to get that really sleek and nice. I find that actually not. It takes me a long time to be happy with those, you know. And so I got that going on. There's a lot of, so much, as you know, there's such a complicated shape. I find here, especially when all these different things are coming together. This is the angle of the heel right in here that I'm going for.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's almost none of it's just done by feel anymore. Everything has got some kind of a jig to help me get it the same every time.
So Dave, as a fellow guitar builder, one thing that I know is that when I'm building, I make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And I see a guy like you, and like I said, I really look up to you. You're a mentor in this for me. And but my question is, Mistakes? Do you make them? What do you do when you do make a mistake?
Well, you know, I've had some prototypes where they, because when I started doing it again, I've been making them off and on over the years, but not to this degree until after Prince died and the interest got, and I've had a couple where I got the angles wrong of the neck and a few things, and they became, I used to have them hanging around here, and they just kind of became shop wood, you know. Sometimes if you get something just a little bit too far, you can kind of massage the problem out. If I carved in a little too far here, sometimes I can just bring this in a tiny little bit, but not too much. I would say I haven't had a lot of problems here because I got everything worked out. In the past, I've had some problems with routes I did that didn't come out the way I wanted. I remember years ago, I did a guy wanted a route on a P base, and the finish hadn't been well applied. And when I took the jig off, the plexiglass template, the paint came with it, you know, which wasn't good. I had to, spend a lot of time. Now I take some naphtha and I soak the, with a eyedropper. I get it all, but that was not good.
You said you had a Def Leppard story.
Yeah, this is something bad that happened, although I don't feel it was really exactly my fault, but it looked bad. I was at a shop in London, and we did all of the big stars of the early 80s, and I was working on Phil Collins. He had an Ibanez destroyer. I think it was white. He was famous for them, and I was setting it up, and over my bench from the ceiling there was a beam, and there were nails holding fender necks. And one of the nails decided it was tired of holding the neck, and a hard rock maple fender neck comes crashing down right on the front of this guitar that belongs to a rock star, Def Leppard, who were at the peak of their career. And I'm looking, I'm going, oh no. And I look out the window, and there's the tech coming to pick it up. And all I remember is that we never saw them again. They found some other place.
Oh no!
But,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of things. Once I had a drill press on some kind of a stand. It wasn't a floor model, and when the legs collapsed and fell on a guy's guitar. So. But I go to quite a bit of trouble now to try and protect from all that. I make sure I'm, fairly alert when I do stuff, and I find as it goes on, I kind of, when I'm doing something, I'm thinking, what could go wrong here, and my eye can kind of look around and make sure I'm not sanding something I shouldn't. It's doing it a long time, but it seems to help a lot.
I think that helps the beginners though, just to know that people don't just jump in and all of a sudden that they're a master.
Oh,
that
no.
Things happen, that it takes work, that you have to keep at it, and you learn as you go, and keep at that. So I think that's an encouragement too.
You can't let that get to you. Nobody, an artist or a singer or any kind of people with any kind of skill, they don't have it right away.
Yeah.
I used to have a girlfriend, she just loved art, and I said, why don't you learn to paint? And she said, I can't do that. And I said, how do you know? You haven't even tried yet.
Right, right, yeah. Well, and one of the things that I think is important that you've already talked about, and that is getting yourself prepared for what you're going to do, and the templates, making sure that you've got something set up so that, hey, now I can do it, I've got it, and it makes it so much quicker than trying to reinvent it every time.
Oh yeah, in fact, if you could hand me that drawer that says templates, I think there's a few in there that I could illustrate. Here's one I call the cutaway controller. They all have to have a name, I just can't help it. I guess when you get a label maker, it becomes dangerous. This is something that I use to figure out the extent of this slope that occurs right where the guitar hits here. I can mark out exactly how far back I want this to go here. I got one for either side. it shows where it starts and where it ends. And then I have another one that shows the exact angle it goes at. Everything that I do, there's something that I can use to check to see how it is, you know, if it's meeting the spec that I've imposed on it. Because I want them to be accurate to the original and have a graceful shape, you know. I started to learn to enjoy the kind of the beauty of a line that's graceful, you know, and try to make sure that happens here, you know, the lines as they come around, and then I have a real good photographer that does them, you know, when they're done, and if they weren't nicely shaped, they would really show up in his photos, especially when they're a candy color like the rave blue, you know, when it's reflective.
Yeah, the gloss will show any bump or any really quick. So yeah.
And so I work at that quite a bit. And just the geometry, I have jigs that are indoors that make sure everything's centered. You know, so when I drill the holes for the stop, that the strings are going to be perfectly centered on the neck. I have other jigs for the holes here. I have a little jig that I made for the wiring harness that's on the inside. I wire up the whole harness outside the guitar except for hooking up the pickups, you know, so I can, it's just a board that's got the holes just where they'll be on the body. So things like that to make it easier and they come out better, you know. Here's when I carve the guitar, I divide it up into different sections so I can cross them off. I found psychologically if I do it in steps like that, instead of just looking at it and thinking, man, I just got to carve this whole thing, it just goes so much easier, you know. Customer drawers are over here. You know, here's one. Yeah. Starting to get some of the parts. And here's one. There's all the small parts that go on it with the guy's name. There's a parts list, you know, with everything.
Oh yeah, very, very wise.
Pickup rings, back plates, frets up on the top. And probably the most hard fought part of it is the shallow bridges. Getting those is tough. I have some coming from Germany though. They were brand new from stores. I got a guy over there, he just found 3 of them. I guess they're in new condition.
Oh, marvelous.
But as you know, they're not easy to get, and they've gone up in price a lot. That's where so much of my time goes. If I just had to carve the guitars, I think about 60% of my trouble would go away, you know. They also make the truss rod covers for me too.
Advanced Plating does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they come out real nice.
Oh, those are nice. Yeah, I've been making my own. Very nice. Do you know what gauge that is? I think that's, that must be about what?
A 16th inch? I can't remember. 16th. I have a brass attachment plate that goes on the back while I work on them. And that goes into this hole here. And then there's also an alignment dowel that goes in here. And when I do the fret work, it's out over this jig here. And I bring this scissors jack up. I'm working on a new development here. I just got this big metal bar in the mail so that when I get to the area of the guitar where the heel is, I'll have this solid plate that's very unyielding to push against. When I put the frets in, I don't pound them in. I use the StewMac, this device. Have you ever seen this?
Yep, the press to press them in.
Yeah, it works really well. And there again, you know, with the finished board, I got to control everything so much. I have a thing that goes over the top. Here's all my protective stuff. Where is that? Here's all the different things I made to protect the guitar in all the kinds of different ways. And I have a thing that goes over the fretboard that just has a slot so that I can protect the rest of the board when I put the frets in, just in case, because I've had some problems. I had a different version of this, an older one of these, and it locked up and it fell off onto the fingerboard. And I had to, it didn't go through the color coat, but it went through the clear. Are you familiar with the Glue Boost products?
No, I am not.
It's a super glue that's made for guitar repair.
Okay.
And it's
Is it a CA glue or?
Yeah, it is,
CA
but it
glue,
is.
okay.
It's not just something you get at a hardware store. It's made for finish repair. It comes in 3 different thicknesses, and it's harder and more resilient and more flexible. And boy, I use this stuff all the time. So I was able to build the clear coats back up and sand them and polish them, you know. And I enjoy fixing defects. I just, something about that, you know, if I walk down the street and I see a dent in a car, I think, boy, I wish I could come back and fix that. I've had problems with tools and made mistakes. Basically, it somehow, something let go on it and it fell onto the fingerboard. You know, so I made this protective device that goes on top, and, you know, it just allows the fret to be put in, you know. And
Yep.
every time any little bad thing happens, I make a new thing to protect things, you know, just so hopefully it won't happen again. I got different covers that go over the whole guitar. This here, and we got different things. I have one that covers the headstock. So when I work on, when I put the, because I have the strings on and off several times, and when I get to the end, I put paper covers over the headstock, and cut these out. And then I put the strings on, and then I tear that off at the end. I saw a Gibson. One thing that helps me a lot is every night I look at factory videos on YouTube. I probably looked at almost every 50 about it by now, and I see different little things that people do, you know.
Yep.
Like here's my device for that I use when I wear up the guitar.
All right.
All the components go on that. And it's just a perfect replication of the back of the guitar. If you look on the back, you can see it's that replicated. Because I was doing this one day and I thought, boy, it sure would be nice if I didn't have to keep reaching into a hole. So I thought, you know, I'll just
try to solder when there's finish.
Yeah. Well, I have a protector, but it's just to get in there. So I thought, well, I'll just replicate it on the board, you know. And I make like a dozen at a time. I just, you know, make up a whole bunch. And so that helped a lot. It's fun making different. I enjoy, I get excited when I think about a invention or a tool or a jig. I think that's fun, you know. It's not like a...
It's part of the journey.
Yeah. And you get to you feel like you're using your brain a little bit. You're being a little bit creative, you know. It feels good, you know.
So when you glue on the wings, I'm curious because I've got hearing different things with different guys with different glues. What glue do you use when you
use a tight bond for everything?
Do you use which tight bond?
The
3,
original.
the original tight bond. Yeah.
That's what was around even back then. You know, it was the standard pretty much. You know, other than, and it's still used a lot. Some people obviously use hide glue for things, but here the tight bond it's really hard to beat. You know, it's a good glue. It cleans up. Use that for the fingerboards too. I use the LMI truss rods. Are you familiar with those?
I am not.
Yeah, there's a bunch in here.
So
they're a double acting rod.
You get those from Stumac?
Or Mercantile.
Okay.
That's you familiar with that company? It's like a Stuart McDonald, another version of that store, a competitor. And I use their rods, and they're double acting. Originally, the rods, they weren't, but I send these all over the world. I want them to have a big range of adjustment. And I find even with these that the neck is so stiff, it's a two-piece neck, you know, it doesn't want to move as much as some necks. You know, the range of adjustment it's a little narrower than I wish it would be, you know, but so I use those rods and they work real good, you know.
Good.
Stuart McDonald has something similar called the hot rod, as I remember, but these work out real good. And so I get those, and I have a guy who makes the fingerboards. When he does that, he does the modern way with a CNC where the slots don't go all the way to the end.
So, okay, so you have those made, the fingerboards are made, and then you get those and put them on. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I do all the carving and all that stuff here, but I get some help.
Yep.
To people that are expertise in certain ways.
Yep.
One thing that I spend quite a bit of time on more than I think I wish I had to is getting a really nice fit with the nut. I get blanks. They're slotted, but they're real rough looking, and I trim the ends. I spend a lot of time polishing them. I have a special file that gets the shelf all cleaned up again. But I really like it to fit and look really good. And boy, that's a lot of work.
It's time consuming.
Yeah,
It
and
really is.
I don't want the strings to sit too deeply in the nut either. I want them to be more like on a Gibson when they get it right, where the low E, only about half of it's sitting into the slot to lessen the friction, especially on a brass nut. And boy, I could spend so much time fussing with that, going all through all the different grades of abrasive, and I polish them on the buffer, and I can get them to come out really nice, but it's a lot of trouble,
Yeah.
much more than doing a bone nut or something.
Right. Yeah.
But it's one of the things that people see. I want it to look nice.
Well, it looks nice, and I like the brass nut. I like the bright, crisp tone and the sustain that it seems to add to it. I
Yeah.
think it adds a little bit of sustain to.
Yeah, if the slots aren't copper, it can kind of grab more than other materials,
Sure.
But it's something that it was when I did the original brass. It was like a trend. Everything was supposed to be brass on the guitar, brass sustain blocks, and sustain was a big. Not that people don't like sustain now, but it seemed to sometimes be almost emphasized at the expense of maybe other kinds of attributes of tone and such. But.
Interesting.
So I work on all that stuff and the fit and the finish. It's I get everything to behave in the end.
Good.
In some ways, they don't become a lot easier. They just keep getting a little better instead, which is good too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was
it means a
fun.
lot to me. And
Most people don't know what I'm talking about when I mention all this stuff.
well, and I think those that are watching this channel, though, I think that's what they're looking for is more the details and how you do the build, and to see the process and just the setup of having protectors and layout jigs, and just to know that, yeah, if you're going to do more than one, it's worth it to take that time to put those things together.
No, it is. I think of it as a little kind of a factory in a way, not in a bad way where they're not handmade anymore, but where everything is tried to be efficient. That's a genius of Jim Olson, the acoustic guitar builder. He's as good at making a process and all the machinery as he is at the guitars.
Yeah.
And he can basically have like a one-man factory.
Right.
He's adept at the CNC. He's not afraid to do something with a machine if it comes out better than it would by hand. Some people think everything has to be done, by hand, but sometimes the machine is more accurate. You have to choose which things are going to do by hand and which you aren't.
Right. Yep.
I guess but I enjoy it. I like doing the scroll with the mini chisels. I like doing that.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's beautiful work.
yeah,
Beautiful
I
work.
do have, if I make minor mistakes occasionally, I do fill them with you're familiar with the System 3 T88 epoxy?
Yep.
And I got
So
the colloidal silica, you mix it up and it turns into this thick fudge.
Yep.
I've used that occasionally,
hard.
for minor things, because the painter says that's the only thing that doesn't shrink up.
Sure. Yeah.
So I do have I always have an out, but so far I haven't done anything serious.
How about your routing jig for that scroll, or for that?
Yeah, actually I got that over at the woodworker's place.
Okay, that's fine.
It's
So,
basically a plexi thing, but I do
Sure.
this part separately.
Yep.
It's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, the originals. I don't know how I even did some of that stuff. I bet if I saw them up close, I'd go, boy, that looks pretty. I was presented with a challenge that, I'd never made a guitar. The store owner says, you're going to make a guitar. And I could have said no. But I remember thinking right at that moment, boy, if I say no, what I'll maybe maybe Steve will never come visit. No, I thought, you know, what am I missing out on if I blow it? They can't kill me. But you know, the movie had been on. If by that point it would have had to been the Stratocaster or something that anybody could have played, and it wouldn't have been the same then.
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't become this thing where he sees it in a window and it was a unique part of his destiny. It would just be another guitar, you know.
It was a character in the movie.
Yeah, no, you know, like Jimi Hendrix, he could make the Stratocaster kind of his own, but this, I think it had to be something that was unique, you know. And so it worked out, you know. It's amazing sometimes what you can do if you're tested.
Yeah.
You know, I bet a lot of people, they never reach their potential because nobody ever, opportunities don't come along like that to see, you know, how they're going to go, you know.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Nice
It means a
seeing you
lot
guys.
to us.
Yeah, well, good. Well, you guys
Well,
have a
yeah,
good day.
we'll, yep, we thank you so much. Yep, bless you. Take care. Keep at it. Hang in there. Right. So,
Okay, well, you guys
all right.
have a good day.
We'll talk to you later. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I really enjoyed having this time with Dave Rusan. Such a great guy. I've said it over and over again, but so humble and kind. And so thank you, Dave, for letting us come in and seeing that. I had my buddy Ron with me. My wife was off with some other friends of ours at the time. So Ron, thanks for joining us on that as well. And I just want to say next week we're going to come back and start getting those necks put on those guitars and the routing done on those pickup routes that need to be done. Got the bridges in, so we're going to be getting ready to work on these as well. Before we ever do one of those Horizon guitars to give away, I'm going to be giving away one of these Union Jack guitars. Taking your nominations for somebody you would like to nominate to receive one of these guitars. Not a raffle, just giving them away to somebody who could really use a little boost of joy. So go ahead, look at the notes below, nominate people, check out my Patreon page if you get a chance, subscribe, and keep watching. Appreciate you guys. Fight for joy. We'll see you next week.